it's wanting to control the narrative and control what people have to think and say, and if you don't go along with that perspective, censorship, maybe by as easy as economically sanction you, so basically you're going to have an extremely hard life, or starve to death, or actually be taken out to the street and shot, as they did in the regimes.
Well, that's exactly right, and you're actually using the technical language that the censorship industry uses and what Brian ran into in the documentary. The commonly accepted framework in order to come up with these network maps of misinformation communities that are then plugged into the censorship apparatus at the tech platform level is to segregate what you're trying to censor into two different categories. One of them is called narratives, and the other one is called claims. And claims are the substrates of they are the component, they are the sort of subatomic elements that comprise the nucleus of the narrative. So for example, a narrative will be, a misinformation narrative that they'll decide on is COVID vaccines don't work. That's a narrative. But there are 50 different claims about why COVID vaccines don't work. Insufficient testing, adverse side effects, doesn't stop transition. I mean, it's itemized out in a decision tree, 50 things long. But at the high level, because they started off with just, sort of doing this narrative thing, and then they said, oh my God, well, here's the problem. We're not giving enough guidance. We, the government or the government-funded, intelligence and statecraft pass-throughs are not giving the tech companies enough direction on what to censor because, we want them to censor anything that promotes vaccine hesitancy. But how do you know if a particular sentence promotes vaccine hesitancy? Well, now you need to go into all the different subcomponent claims of what comprises that narrative hesitancy, narrative. And so initially they were doing this on the basis of narratives, but now it's in this much more technical forensics. This, by the way, this is why it requires hundreds of thousands of people on government payroll doing this between the U.S. and all the different NATO countries, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that number, by the way, is because there's so much work that goes into generating all those different subclaims so that each particular subclaim can be in an updated database for the tech companies to be able to make the decision about what something is. And that's constantly evolving, which gets back to, the apparent obliviousness of Google's own sort of executive team, who's not in the technical CIA analyst weeds of what goes into that sausage. They just know, hey, we got general policy against misinformation. Well, what's misinformation? It evolves. Well, can you give me any more than that? Not really. It's still evolving. Well, that is because they know the narrative is banned. But the specific list of claims and its fine-tuning and, like the great example of this is NewsGuard, which targeted Brian for the first 18 months. That is their number one claim, was, that the COVID originated as a lab leak. But then, Chris Wray comes out and says, as you put in the film, actually the FBI's leading theory is that was a lab leak. It's like, okay, well, it looks a little, we'll take that one off, and then we'll just make it unrecoverable on archive.org. I mean, it's all screenshotted, and you can find all this stuff in the articles I've done. But essentially, it's this management of a real-time database of all the narratives and all of the subclaims within a narrative that you can and can't say in the Western world. But hey, chin up. I mean, seriously, like we've come a long way. No, I'm serious. I'm so serious. This is why you guys, a lot of people say, oh, how do you have so much energy? I have energy because of all of the winning we've done.